Hi, there, it's WB and welcome to World Broadcast YouTube channel. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and press bell icon to never miss any latest news. Comey killed deal that would have unmasked DNC leaker. Former FBI Director James Comey personally intervened to kill a WikiLeaks immunity deal, preventing Julian Assange from unmasking the real source of the DNC email leak. According to reports, during negotiations between Assange and the Dodge to find out the truth about Russiagate, Comey intervened and nuked the deal to prevent damaging evidence from being released. LibertyUnyielding.com reports, and, of particular interest to the Russiagate narrative, Assange was also offering to explain why the source of the John Podesta email data released by WikiLeaks in 2016 could not be the Russian hackers suspected by the FBI. Assange was not offering to disclose his source, only to discuss why his information indicated it could not be the Russians. After Comey shut the negotiations with Assange down, attempts to revive them were unsuccessful. The end result was the devastating WikiLeaks release on April 7, 2017 of a CIA-developed hacking framework with which to build custom malware. This wasn't just information about the kind of capability the CIA had, it was code-level data. In the interim, in early March 2017, WikiLeaks released a trove of information revealing that the CIA had developed cyber tools that could mimic the profile of Russian hackers, and make it look as if a hack had been done by the Russians when it was actually the CIA. Both WikiLeaks releases occurred after Comey spiked the negotiations, which occurred in February 2017. But the odd thing about his intervention is that it apparently was done by going around the Justice Department negotiators. Comey got the deal-making shut down via another route. That route was Senator Mark Warner, DVA. Longtime Warner associate Adam Waldman, a lobbyist to whom Assange had reached out in January, as the Trump inauguration approached, was brokering the talks, and had put Assange in touch with Bruce Orrin senior counterintelligence official David Laufman at the Dodge. Their series of contacts had the negotiations in full swing by mid-February 2017. That's when Comey weighed in, by going through Warner rather than the Dodge principals. According to John Solomon, prosecutor David Laufman was determined to go ahead with a deal for Assange. But Assange pulled back, spooked by the Comey intervention and the mixed signals. Although the back and forth continued into March, Assange never had the confidence he needed to commit to the deal. Solomon has these comments: Waldman couldn't believe a U.S. senator and the FBI chief were sending a different signal, so he went back to Laufman, who assured him the negotiations were still on. What Laufman said to me after he heard I was told to stand down by Warner and Comey was, "That's bullsh. You are not standing down and neither am I," Waldman recalled. Multiple sources tell me the FBI's counterintelligence team was aware and engaged in the Justice Department's strategy but could not explain what motivated Comey to send a different message around the negotiations through Warner. The events in sequence it may help to remember that we've heard before about Mark Warner and Adam Waldman trying to make contact with a Russiagate player. It was at this exact time, in fact, in February and March 2017, and the target in that case was Christopher Steele. Indeed, a report from Fox News by Ed Henry, in February 2018, contained the very text message correspondence by Warner that reflected his contact with Comey on shutting down the Assange talks. But that wasn't visible in this Fox report, which was focused on the pursuit of Steele. We are now finding out that one of the texts in Warner's text history is the one relating to the Comey intervention. According to Solomon's timeline, Adam Waldman contacted Bruce Orr, whom he knew from previous work with Dodge, in January to set up the Dodge contact with Assange. The first message Solomon's documentation shows was on January 12, 2017, a busy day for Russiagate, as readers will remember. Waldman himself met with Assange 3 times in London between then and 3 February, when Waldman and Orr connected in person in Washington. Waldman and Laufman were linked up within 24 hours, and the negotiations through Waldman took off with Assange. It's worth noting something quite interesting in the next few days, although it might not seem to be directly related to the Assange timeline. On 8th of February, Comey went to see Trump at the White House. His memoranda on communications with Trump are posted on the FBI records site, and include a brief email series memorializing the Oval Office visit. The subject line under which the entire series occurred was Senator Warner Call. In other words, the emails about Comey's visit to the White House that they were sent under that subject line. The correspondents in the series were Comey and his Chief of Staff James Robitsky. The exchanges occurred as follows, all dates February 8, 2017, 3:55 p.m., Robitsky to Comey please call, redacted, at 6:45 p.m. His EA will answer and connect you. 4:48 p.m., Comey to Robitsky was this set up as a result of my request? I had asked Jason. Meeting is done. Took me to Oval. Will be doing another memo. Respectfully, 4:59 p.m., Robitsky to Comey no. Request of the Senator. 5:03 p.m., Comey to Robitsky also sat and chatted with Mike Flynn in lobby. Thus, while Warner's friend Waldman was working the Assange negotiations, and, as we also learned later, trying to arrange a meeting with Christopher Steele, Warner was apparently involved in setting up the Oval Office meeting between Comey and Trump on 8th of February. It was a little over a week later that Comey intervened to shut down the Assange offer. The Fox story from February and the Solomon article on 25th of June both reflect the intimation of this event in the same text message exchange between Waldman and Warner, which took place on 16 February 2017. Responding to Waldman's text, Warner made this cryptic comment, "Have had important call about her message will have answer tomorrow." The important call was from James Comey, and the answer was, "Stand down." Solomon, he told me he had just talked with Comey and that, while the government was appreciative of my efforts, my instructions were to stand down, to end the discussions with Assange, Waldman told me. John Solomon. Waldman offered contemporaneous documents to show he memorialized Warner's exact words. David Loffman did come back with the counter order to keep the negotiations going. Which is interesting in itself, because it seems to make clear that Comey and the Dodge staff were at odds on this matter. But Assange never felt assured that he could rely on the terms and commitment after Comey pulled the rug out from under the initial process. About 3 weeks later, on 7th of March, the first of the WikiLeaks dumps on CIA data was released. Besides the fact that government officials were acknowledging the truth of the revelations from that dump, for example, that the CIA could mimic Russian hackers in its cyber skullduggery, the officials also said they had known since late 2016 about the breach of CIA security that resulted in the WikiLeaks release. U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials said on Wednesday that they have been aware since the end of last year of a security breach at the CIA that led to anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks publishing agency documents on its hacking tools. The officials, who asked not to be identified, told Reuters that they believed that the documents published by WikiLeaks on Tuesday were authentic. Investigators were focusing on CIA contractors as the likely source of passing materials to WikiLeaks, the officials said. They had known since late 2016. But, from my post, emphasis added. An FBI investigation of the CIA leak was just opened on Wednesday, 8th of March, 2017. It's a good question why the investigation was just launched today, if officials have known since last year that there was a leak. It's an even better question now that we know James Comey shut down the negotiations with Assange, which were intended to limit the damage from the leaks in exchange for limited immunity. What was Comey doing? These peculiar activities on Comey's part make interesting food for thought, juxtaposed with his persistent refrain that he stepped in to exonerate Hillary in July 2016 because of Russian-hacked information, gained by U.S. intelligence, that Loretta Lynch had assured the Hillary campaign she wouldn't let the email probe go too far. Again, a never-proven allegation. See the link for more. At this point, we do have to wonder. Was it really the Russians who, again, allegedly, hacked Democratic emails and, allegedly, caught Debbie Wasserman Schultz telling a Soros staffer that Lynch had passed on that assurance to a Hillary aide? If it wasn't the Russians, if it was maybe the CIA, was there a reason why Comey wouldn't want to limit how much of that became visible through a WikiLeaks dump? If U.S. officials knew about the compromise of CIA data, they had a pretty good idea what was in those pilfered files. Why would Comey go around the Dodge negotiators to shut down the talks with Assange? That guaranteed the exposure from the CIA data dump would be worse than it had to be. Is it for the same reason, then, that Comey has been rather weirdly persistent with his tale about wanting to protect the Hillary email probe from the appearance of corruption, suggested by the Russian-hacked intelligence story involving Lynch and Wasserman Schultz? Why would he keep mentioning that little theme-led in his representations to Congress and the public? Does Comey want to foster a narrative that hints at CIA complicity in collecting, or maybe just having, information about other figures in the Obama administration? It wouldn't be hard to think of a motive for that, but it would certainly open a can of worms. Meanwhile, Mark Warner's agency in so many situations in that short period last year is certainly noteworthy. It does leave me wondering if it was really just for himself that Warner was trying so hard to set up a meeting with Christopher Steele. But I am left with two principal takeaways. One is that the level of knowledge Obama agencies have repeatedly shown about IT system compromises is inconsistent with their occasional, convenient-seeming expressions of surprise about such compromises, or about things that were being done on their computers, or on the computers of key organizations like the DNC and the Hillary campaign. The main thing that means is that they didn't really have to struggle to reconstruct what had happened in the months after the public found out about it. In a number of cases, it's a good bet they knew either in real time, or at least well before disclosures were made to the public. That leads to the second takeaway, one that never seems to change. They knew. They watched. They monitored. Either they're making up fairy stories now about how much they knew, for example, that CIA cyber tools had been pilfered, that U.S. intel had Russian-hacked intel on the cyber correspondence of Democratic officials, or they really did know that much, in which case, they've been playing dumb about a lot of things. And yet in all that knowing, watching, and monitoring, they never found anything to nail Trump with. This Mueller investigation is so dirty and tainted by all its ancillary features, it can never be used to go after Trump anyway. But if there were anything to go after him for, we'd have to know it by now. Please don't forget to like and support our channel by press subscribe button. Thank you for watching.